So we still run that outdoor recreation program called Adventure Sessions. And so we work with roughly 20 different organizations through that, where we provide no cost recreation up in Whistler. And it's a great kind of, program that can augment or be in addition to the program that they already are running within their individual programs. And when they're bringing youth up to Whistler, they're getting a glimpse of what we are at CO Ceiling, and they have an introduction to our staff team, and they get to see what Whistler is. They often get to actually meet some of our participants that are in work placements with Whistler Blackcomb. So we often see a lot of interest through that. And then those organizations tend to be the ones that refer most participants to our program. So we're referral based. Youth can refer themselves. Finding youth can be one of the challenging things, but postering, outreach, sitting in on like support worker roundtables in the city and through the Sea to Sky corridor, and just trying to do our best to inform the different agencies out there that we partner with that we have space, and we're another option for youth out there.
So what do you want people to know about Zero Ceiling?
I think what we've seen a little bit, I'll admit, at the early stages of this pandemic, where I think a lot of people kind of drew back and became really self-protective because there was so much uncertainty. And one of our youth workers made that connection where a lot of people are feeling what our participants have always felt, just that uncertainty, not knowing what's going to happen next. What's like that security that they've always had doesn't feel so secure anymore. And with that, we've seen people kind of insulate a little bit and become self-protective, which is like understandable. And we're starting to see now people like our donors, our community partners, our supporters starting to come out a little bit now that we have a bit of a better understanding what to expect. Like the need of what we do is still there. I think the need is greater than ever. Like those that were vulnerable will be the most dramatically impacted by this pandemic. So I think it's important that the awareness is out there that like this work is still happening as people are able to turn their perspective outward again. And once they understand how they're going to be able to manage this pandemic, looking to see how they can support nonprofits such as ours. I know there's a huge need in Vancouver. Some of the partners that we work really closely with that have been really dramatically impacted, and the youth that they serve are Covenant House, Directions Youth Services, the Urban Native Youth Association. And we know they'll need support just like we need support. And something that we've seen, and I alluded to it earlier when talking about the Vancouver Foundation, is we've seen the nonprofit sector isn't impervious to the uncertainty that this pandemic has brought. We have seen foundations do that self-protective measure where a lot of foundations give off of the interest of their investments, and with the stock market being hit as it was, foundations have pulled back. Some foundations have kind of suspended their grant programs. And then we've seen other organizations such as the Vancouver Foundation. Another large supporter of ours that gave unrestricted funding was the Social Venture Partners in Vancouver. And so we think, although we're really happy with how we've been supported moving forward, as we look forward from a funding perspective, it's becoming more and more uncertain. It's been great to see Government of British Columbia honor their contracts, which has really been helping us be stable. It's also great to see the response by the federal government with all the incentives. We've benefited from those as well. And now, which has allowed us to be stable in the short term. And there's just a lot of unanswered questions around our funding in the future. And speaking with other executive directors, I know that's the same across many nonprofits and not just the homelessness sector. So we would encourage those that can to give and give in a way that's most meaningful. We've seen some donors realign with their support to decrease the support with us, potentially to increase the support with our local food bank, which we feel is really valuable. And so I think just be attuned to the needs of the community, and there's been a lot of nonprofits that haven't been hit super hard by this, while others have been dramatically altered. So I think being aware of the ones that you can help most would be really valuable right now.
They say that adversity brings out the best and worst in people, and the same with organizations. It's been pretty heartwarming to see the collaboration happening within the not-for-profit sector.
Yeah, we've definitely benefited from that. Right after kind of mid-March, after all this started rolling out, and we had a pretty clear understanding of how dramatic the impacts were going to be. We had a community-wide nonprofit phone call where the municipal staff sat in on it and just asked how they could help, and just recognizing that nonprofits kind of roll out the services that many governments fund. So it was great to see the support of our municipal government, and they've been really rallying behind our food bank because it's being used more than ever. And our local food bank actually relies on a social venture in their thrift stores that they run. So they felt a huge impact with those closing, and just seeing how other nonprofits have come together. We've actually delegated one of our staff members for half a day a week to work with the food bank just to help with their communication strategy so that they can get the word out on exactly what their needs are. And it's been so great. And once again, like I spoke a bit to it earlier, rather than that competitive nature of the whole nonprofit sector and granting. And it's just been great to see the nonprofits, socially minded people come together. Like, hey, what is the greatest need of the community, and who's in a position to help with that? And for in Whistler Community Services takes on a lot of that responsibility. So people have been rallying behind them, organizations have been rallying behind them, and we're rallying behind them. So then just from our local context, we really encourage people to support their local food banks, support outreach services. We're seeing middle income families that have never come in contact with the social service sector now waiting in line at the food bank every week and accessing counseling services, and so whatever people can give.
There are 22,000 not-for-profits in British Columbia. I find it hard to believe that any one of us hasn't been touched by the work that's being done by those people. We've all had access to some pretty amazing services. Do you think because we're now closer to our community that we're spending more time giving back?
Yeah, I guess I can only speak to the local context, and I feel really privileged in Whistler. Like, Whistler is definitely a privileged community in many ways, and we see. I think the rates of volunteerism are quite high in Whistler, and what we've seen is people reaching out and asking how they can help, and to a point where it's almost hard to provide opportunities for everyone right now. And I do think even just beyond the nonprofit sector, it's been great to see one of those kind of the silver linings of this is I think it's really helped people prioritize and understand what's important. And I think community, like more than ever, and like collectivism has really been highlighted here, where I know we often strive for individualism and being the best that we can be. And I think all of us are only able to make it through here because of the strength in our communities. So that's been heartwarming.
So what keeps you up at night? Yeah,
I think, knowing that there's more kids out there, and we have uncertainty in our programming right now. All of the participants in our program work full-time jobs once they start our program. We connect them with Whistler Blackcomb, the ski hill, and the ski hill's closed, and there's been no announcement on when they're going to reopen. So all of our participants have been laid off, and that's a really core structure to our program, is just providing structure to our participants. So just a lot of uncertainty around what's going to happen there. And Whistler Blackcomb is now owned by Vail Resorts, but locally employ, I believe it's 3,000 to 3,500 people. So that's had a huge impact on the community and a huge impact on our program. And just knowing that we don't have the same contact that we usually do with our participants, we can't provide the same support that we used to. Just seeing them struggle more. And I think that's been hard for me and hard for the staff, and just trying to figure out how we can meet the needs as best as we can right now.
So what are the toughest conversations you've had to have lately?
From a management perspective, early on in the pandemic, we had the conversation of staff cuts just to make sure that we could continue providing essential services. And with the generous support of foundations like the Vancouver, we also benefited from some of the federal funding. Yeah, we were able to keep our staff on, which means we're able to maintain the best level of support. so that was really tough, and it was tough talking with our staff team about that. We approached all of them. We're quite small, but and it was once again, it was heartwarming to see people step up to address the most immediate needs, and they recognized that there was funding implications of what was happening, and volunteered to take cuts if necessary, and which was amazing to see. It was a challenging conversation to enter into, and just so great. So I'm so happy that we didn't actually have to cut anyone.
Yeah.
So it's hard to see. Yeah, the work that we do, seeing people struggle is part and parcel with the work that we do, and just knowing that right now for a bunch of our participants, there's nowhere for them to go that's safe beyond what we have to offer. So for some, we're all they have right now, and knowing that the way that we can support them has been impacted is tough. So it's making us be really creative to make sure that we're meeting people's needs. And even when they're not adhering to our typical program rules, we just have to do our best to be, strength-based, individualized, and react as best we can.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about that we should?
Yeah, I think one thing maybe just to put a point on is we've benefited. It's been great to see the philanthropic sector respond how they have, or many, in a large part anyways, where I think there can be tension between the relationships between foundations and nonprofits, and it's often around expectations and reporting and restrictions around funding. And it's just been so great to see the philanthropic sector believe in the nonprofits carrying out the services that they're funding, and just recognize them as the experts in their field, and just giving them more freedom, and that comes in loosened reporting, relaxed reporting, I should say, and unrestricted funding, where in the past those things have been a bit tighter and at administrative costs and stressors to nonprofits. So that's just been so great for them to see the philanthropic sector meet the needs of the nonprofit sector. So I would encourage foundations and donors just to recognize that we need to be innovative in these times, and responding quickly in innovative fashion. It's necessary to have that flexibility with funding.
Well, I want to offer you my heartfelt thanks and kudos to you and your team. You're doing some amazing work. It's really important work.
Yeah, thanks, Don. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. And thanks for everyone out there, and stay well. And
if people want to find out more, they can go to the website, which is zeroceiling.org.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, Sean, I really want to thank you. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. Have a good one, Don.
Okay, you too. Take care. We've been speaking with Sean Easton of Zero Ceiling. To find out more about Sean and the team at Zero Ceiling, just visit them online at zeroceiling.org. That's another edition of the Conversation Lab. This radio program and podcast is produced by CFRO FM in Vancouver's downtown east side on the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Our gratitude and thanks to them, as well as the many not-for-profit organizations and community groups for their support. If you enjoyed this program, please consider becoming a member of Co-op Radio to help support programs like these. If you know anyone or an organization with a story to share, please let them know about us. We can be found at coopradio.org, theconversationlab.ca, and on many social media and podcasting platforms. And thank you for dropping by the Conversation Lab.